Thank you, Ernie. Good morning. I would like to start to address the children. To all the children hurt, scared, touched, raped, filmed, photographed, you are not alone. And to all the survivors reliving the trauma, feeling powerless because the pictures are still online, we are doing what we can to stop this. A few weeks ago, I presented tough, unprecedented and groundbreaking proposals for legislation to prevent and fight child sexual abuse. I'm glad survivors today are center stage because this law is your law. Sarah, Daniela, Tabitha, Vibke, Bob, Paul, thank you for bearing witness. It's so important that we hear your voice. Tabitha, you remind us of the danger refugee children face. That's why I put the fight against trafficking on top of the European agenda on the first day of when Russia invaded Ukraine. Sarah, what happened to you warns the dangers of grooming, which increased during the pandemic, last year alone with 16%. Men targeting vulnerable, lonely, insecure children online, manipulating or blackmailing them into sexual activities, or abusing them in the real world. Paul, Daniela, and Vibke, your stories make clear the uncomfortable truth. Most abusers are no strangers. They are the father, the uncle, the helpful neighbor, family friend, scout leader, football coach, priest. I want you all to know, it's not your abuse that defines you. It's the courage and strength that you are showing today and every day. Defying trauma, defying stigma, and standing up for children. As a child, you had no power, but now you do have power, using what happened to you to change the world. And Bob, yours is a very special story of empowerment. As Interpol's head of crimes against children, you rescued more than 5,000 children in 3 years alone. Using videos and images, captures in raids or shared by social media companies. You say you can't unsee what you see, can't unhear what you hear. But you did this vital job because every single image could be the vital clue that cracks a case. Abuse happens behind closed doors where no one can see. But abusers share videos and images online and boast about their crimes. Like the daycare worker in Amsterdam, a charming babysitter, but sentenced in 2012 for abusing 87 children, who picked young children precisely because they cannot yet speak, who raped babies, ignored their cries and pain, and recorded it. And when facing jail, told the court he hoped pedophiles would continue to enjoy the images because he no longer would be able to. And 6 years later, media reported images were still available online. Or a case investigated by German authorities right now of a man suspected of abusing, torturing, raping at least 12 children half of them younger than 3 years old. He filmed them and shared the videos. Can you imagine the pain of the already traumatized children and their parents? We must take the photos down, the videos down, take the abuse down. That is what my proposal is about. Men share abuse in online communities, like the Boys Town network, 400,000 people strong before police took it down. Many of the users are not physically abusing children, yet. They come to watch, which is also a crime and harmful. But a Finnish survey shows the step from watching rapes to committing rapes is small. Over half of these men asked fear they might commit sexual violence against a child. And almost 40% contacted a child after watching abuse online. Disrupting these communities, stopping abusers and bringing them to justice. This is what my proposal is about. Right now, some internet companies detect, report, and remove child sexual abuse on a voluntary basis, essential for police to save children. Based on one of these reports, an international operation supported by Europol recently rescued 146 children from what was described as sadistic acts of sexual abuse. A report like this also triggered the Bergisch Gladbach investigations in Germany, identifying over 400 suspects, saving 65 children. The youngest victim was 3 months old. The lead investigator said, even the most experienced investigators were shocked by the seriousness of the abuse. In some of the member states in the European Union, 80% of the tips to law enforcement come from internet companies. And that's why I am presenting this proposal now. Because if we do nothing, voluntary detection and reporting will stop in the European Union. When the temporary emergency legislation we put in place last year expires, companies will not be allowed to detect, report, and remove child sexual abuse. Last year, legal uncertainty caused a drop in voluntary detection by nearly 50%. To stop this disaster, we succeeded in getting an emergency law adopted, allowing voluntary reporting to continue for a while, giving us some breathing space. But in a few short years, this temporary derogation will expire, and if we do nothing, or if we don't get an agreement on my proposals, before time runs out, then detection in Europe will stop. Reports will drop dramatically, blindfolding police, predators will roam free, and videos and images of abuse will spread uncontrollably, and that must never happen. And I'm presenting these proposals now because online abuse is rising. Just this week, German police announced that last year cases more than doubled of distributing, sharing, possessing, and producing child sexual abuse material, mirrored by a dramatic increase of actual sexual abuse cases. In Europe, we have seen a 6,000% increase in reports since 2010. Last year, 85 million images and videos were reported worldwide. Not only more material, but also more extreme. And the children are getting younger and younger. We must now turn the rising tide of child sexual abuse. And that's what I aim to do with my proposals, replacing the temporary emergency legislation we have now with a permanent solution. First, to prevent this crime from happening in the first place, by focusing on prevention. We will set up a new European Center to prevent and fight child sexual abuse, to gather expertise, to boost prevention and support the empowered and empower victims. But prevention alone is not enough. With my proposals, we are moving from a broad voluntary framework to a much more targeted mandatory framework. Companies must make a risk assessment of child sexual abuse and grooming on their services, and then reduce that risk with mitigating measures to prevent the spread of abuse, and through safety by design, so children can safely play video games online or talk online. When we drive our cars, there are rules, there are safeties. Doors have child locks, children sit in booster seats, they are not allowed in front. But on the digital superhighway, children can not only sit in front, they can drive the car without a seatbelt in 240 kilometers per hour. We must make the online world as safe for children as the real world. And if mitigating measures are not enough, then, and only then, will independent national authorities give companies a detection order for a specific period of time, involving data protection authorities when necessary in line with GDPR, EU data protection rules. Any abuse found goes to the news center, and the center removes any false positives and send only actual child sexual abuse to law enforcement for investigations. My proposals are technology neutral. They don't tell companies which tools they must use, but technology must be effective, reliable, the least intrusive available, and detect child sexual abuse and child sexual abuse only. That's how detection technology used today works. Like a police dog smelling the mail, only barking when they smell drugs. They have no idea what else is inside. Or like a magnet finding a needle in a haystack. The magnet does not see the hay. In the same way, this technology only sees child sexual abuse and nothing else. The technology to detect known abuse is extremely accurate. Technology detecting new material and grooming is very accurate and getting better every day. I'm very grateful to the We Protect Global Alliance for organizing this summit, and I'm proud to co-host it here in Brussels. I could not come at a better time, 10 years after the foundation of the Global Alliance to End Sexual Exploitation Online, and just before the negotiations on my proposals will start. There will be a big debate. My proposals are focused, targeted, and have many safeguards to protect children and the privacy of all internet users. But there are loud voices who oppose my proposals, for whom there will never be enough safeguards, or companies that don't want to be regulated. The title of this summit is Turning the Tide, and we are building a dam. But if my proposals are blocked or delayed, detecting will stop in Europe, and that would not turn the tide against child sexual abuse online, that would open the floodgates. So I ask you, show your support. Think of the survivors here today who say, let no child suffer what we have suffered. Think of their inspiring courage and follow their example. Speak out. A child's voice sounds so soft. Someone has to speak for the children. So I ask you, raise your voice and speak for the children. Thank you.